Reiki. Greetings. So, here's my astrodoodle. It is the 22nd of June. And there's some I feel like it's very, very, very interesting stuff that's going on in terms of the history of America and the much, much bigger story that is unfolding and how it relates to the astrology. And as far as I'm concerned, you cannot disconnect the astrology from what's happening in America. I mean, very few people follow astrology, at the levels that we do, but the way I see it, everything is perfect. Everything is exactly perfect. We're seeing the 250-year cycle coming to an end. It's death, it's dying, and we are going to be reborn in the spirit of 1776. It's not going to be easy. Anyway, let me say hello. Okay. So right now we're still under the fog of Neptune. Extreme fog of Neptune right now. And it's being amplified and challenged in different ways. It's been going on for many weeks now, and we've been talking about it. Today is Saturday 22nd. 10 days ago my channel was shut down completely. I had a full-blown strike. Everything was shut down. Couldn't do anything. And they sent me all the warnings and the explanations, and here's my opportunity to appeal and review. And of course I checked everything and I realized, why am I going to waste my breath on those people? I'm already guilty, and until proven innocent, I cannot prove my innocence in a way that is acceptable to those folks. So I don't even bother anymore. I just take it on the chin. I get whacked, and that's what happens. It's a very regular routine now. And I still don't understand it. My channel is so tiny, and the subjects that they bring up make it look like I'm a major conspiracy theorist trying to expose the Illuminati and the globalist cabal, and that I have some kind of information that they don't have. I just think they're a little bit scared of who we are and what we do. I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you. So, like you say, it's been an interesting time recently. Okay, it was shut down on today is the 22nd, so it was shut down on the 12th. And a lot has happened since that time. Thank you. A lot has happened since that time. Multiple things. In the astrology, we had what I consider like a pseudo full moon, when the moon came into Sagittarius, very close to opposing what was momentarily the 29.5 degrees sun in Gemini. So it was like a Gemini Sagittarius opposition, sun and moon, hard squaring on the Neptune 29 degrees. Just a massive T-square, where I will translate it as the energy of truth and light is coming at both angles onto the tragedy, the sadness, the disgust, the squalor, the perversion of the shadow side of Neptune. Excuse my lungs here. And it reached a kind of crescendo where it's all out there now. And what's happening is, I think mainstream media are really struggling to put a lid on it. They're struggling to put a lid. It's easy for them to put a lid on me. They can just go, I'm like a little mosquito, like a little fly to them. But there are some major operators in the alternative world. Some of my favorites are Redacted, Al Jazeera, WION, and multiple others who go into deep disclosure and truth-telling. A lot of that also happens on X and Telegram platform, and sometimes the Substack platforms, and so on. But the big ones, particularly here, YouTube, under the alphabet world of Google, is where there is a mass global audience. My channel is like, my channel is on a choke chain. We all know that. It's boring. Who knows? And I like to do a lot of what I consider high altitude searches. I operate like a kind of a golden eagle, very big, very high up. I am looking way down for certain markers, behaviors, telltale signs that give me information that I need to know. Like the movement of these people, the movement of those people, the communications from these folks over here, over there, and the conflicting dynamics. Like if you watch, I watched Al Jazeera about 4 days ago, and they did an excellent report on the, let's see, the people inside America who aren't legally supposed to be here. Roughly around that subject. And so there was the host from Al Jazeera. Now, Al Jazeera is a Qatar Islamic Muslim-funded operation, so they have their perspective from the Islamic view of the world. It's excellent material if you want to look through the lens of Islam. It's fabulous. So I like to do that because it gives me a perspective on their perspectives. And so there was the host, and then there were 3 guests, and I kept thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting. Each of the guests was some sort of privileged person, in my perspective. One was a young lady from a top-level Ivy League college, and she describes herself as her primary purpose is activism. Another lady was involved in something similar, but she called herself an artistic intellectual. And the other fellow was a professor of Islam and American history at, I think, Santa Barbara, America. So each of these people, the guests, come from a very privileged position inside America. And so they went on about their storytelling about this and that, about how certain people have rights that are being denied and how certain populations are being suppressed because they don't fit in with the white nationalist agenda of the original founding fathers, on the understanding that the original founding fathers are a bunch of WHITE, SLAVE, OWNER, RACISTS. And they just want to keep the business going. And the way they want to do that is by suppressing everyone else that is of a different color and exploiting them, extracting what they can and debilitating them in any way possible. So that's the theme in the background. But it was very interesting to me to hear these 3 intellectuals, highly privileged intellectuals, giving their version of it. And at the end I thought, you know, if that's all I ever saw on the world news, I would say, wow, these guys have really nailed it. America is an evil place full of really evil, fair-skinned complexion people, especially the males, especially the ones that like to protect and defend themselves. So I kept thinking, okay, well, I'm actually one of those people. Huh. Now I feel intensely guilty. I don't viciously go out and hurt anybody. I'm not openly, actively exploiting anybody. I personally feel that I'm very lucky, I'm very wealthy, I'm very happy, I'm very, very blessed in my own way, by birth or whatever. Hello, Fluffles. But I don't feel that I abuse that power. I do feel that there are people with my complexion who do abuse their power, and some of them are extremely high up in the demographics chart. Okay, at the tippity top here are the elites, and at the bottom everyone else is there. Okay, so I thought, okay, that was a very, very in-depth, very interesting story. And it really stood out to me. And at the end of it, I thought, okay, if I wanted to get angry, I could say that the host and the guests are complete bigots. Utter racist bigots. Outspoken, revolutionary, stirring up trouble, teaching trouble. And then I thought to myself, if these three people hate what we have here in America that includes people of my complexion, and you're especially blaming people of my complexion for all of your problems, your life experience that doesn't work out for you, even though you're highly privileged, then my feeling was, I didn't type it in the responses, I didn't do that because I don't want to get into trouble so much anymore. And I thought, if you hate it here so much, if you hate people like me so much, if you hate the environment, you hate the Constitution, you hate the laws, you hate the police, you hate the police, you hate the army, you hate the military, you hate the Constitution, why don't you go back to the countries that have the belief systems which you espouse? I didn't say that though, but I felt like saying it. I kept my mouth shut because otherwise I could be labeled as a racist. Oh God, and then it just perpetuates the war. But anyway, that's just one tiny example of what I wanted to share. Outside this morning in the backyard, it was 120 in the sun. It's now about 125, 126 in the sun, and if you go in the shade with the other thermometers, it's about 115. Just wanted to share that. So, over the last 10 days, we zoomed through things. What I started to notice is that there's irrepressible information or news or storytelling or theories that may be conspiratorial that are coming out all over the alternative medias that cannot be suppressed anymore. The mainstream folks, the alphabets, Googles, Facebooks, Metas, all the big ones, and all the American versions of it on TV. In other words, ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, Warner, Disney, and all those things, and all their substations. They all speak one language from one agenda, which is pretty much the mirror opposite of my viewpoints. And what I kept thinking is that it's becoming, I deliberately watch mainstream every now and then, little clips to see their perspective. And what I see are a bunch of elite intellectuals who adhere to an ideology that feels very distorted and perverse to me. But they adhere to it anyway, and they're kind of in a state of denial, a state of meltdown, a state of sheer panic about what's happening. So in my head with the astrology, I go, well, okay, we're reaching that cusp. We're reaching a point of critical mass over the next few months. And is that coinciding with some of the chaos that we're witnessing across the world and how it's reaching a crescendo? No. We've been predicting this for a long time. So right now we're in about the 0 to 1 degree mark of Pluto in Aquarius. And Pluto's still retrograde, and it's going to be in Capricorn before we know it. And that's going to take us into the 29 and a half degree mark of desperation for Pluto in Capricorn. So what I feel we're going to witness is increasing displays of desperation from the elites, the folks at the very top here. And that's going to coincide with the 29 and a half degree mark of Neptune in Pisces. Extremely tight harmony between those two energies. Basically, it's a sextile. The Capricorn to Pisces is a direct sextile, okay? So I kept thinking, okay, let's wait for that, because you have to understand that the mainstream and the globalists, they have pretty much a stranglehold on how the world operates all over the planet, not just America, but all over Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Asia, China, Africa, Central and South America, Oceania. Just track it all back to the Federal Reserve banking system, and you'll know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I kept thinking, everything is exactly as it should be. The chaos is what it should be, according to my calculations. The desperation, that's to be expected, and the revealing for the healing. And why is that? Well, because for the last few weeks, we had the Gemini season. We had Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Gemini. We've also got, anyway, so that's going on as well. And as predicted, when Sun and Venus and Mercury were transiting the pressure points, 29 to 29 and a half degrees to 0, it's going to be like floodlights shining on the Neptune 29 and a half. And that's what we got. Increasing in pressure from alternative truth speakers to the point where the truth is becoming very hard for the elites to suppress. So they're doing everything they can, but it's starting to look bad for them. Or let's put it this way, it's a bad look. The obvious names to call out are Grandpa Joe and his whole family. Then there's Alejandro, Mr. Mayorkas guy. And then there's Merrick and Mr. Garland guy. Alvin, Letitia, and there's a whole gang. There's all the 3-letter government departments as well. Interesting, Ted Cruz went on a rant the other day. We need to shut down FBI, CIA, CDC, and there's a couple of other really big ones that are so perverse and so corrupt, they just need to be completely demolished. Perfect. Okay. So anyway, there we were. So go back to a few days, like the 19th or the 20th, like middle of this week, you could feel it all boiling up. The Gemini Sagittarius thing, very frenetic, loud, clamoring voices of wisdom and voices of truth and just truth-telling, pounding on that 29-degree Neptune. And what did we see? It's they're being called out. The elites, the people that I don't particularly like, the ones that are running the show, behind the actual owners of the world, like, the BlackRock folks, the Vanguards, the State Streets, the Blackstones, who actually own it and operate through the Federal Reserve, through the United States stock market, through the federal government, through the federal and the state and retail banking system. Those people and all the global multinationals that they own and control, they're getting desperate. They're getting desperate because they're starting to realize, damn it, there's a bunch of people who've seen through our scam. All the fog and the mist and the distractions and everything that we've been pumping out there for so long, it's not working anymore. People want this, the truth. The thing is, the truth stinks. That's why I called it last week, like 10 days ago, the stench of truth. Because that's what it is. The truth is so disgusting that it has a stench of like rotten flesh, dead rotten flesh, disease-ridden flesh. So there we are. So that's what I observed. And very, very recently, which in other words, that was yesterday, the moon went into Capricorn, setting everything up for the full moon in Capricorn. And that just happens to be at the very, very early degrees where the sun is now in the early degrees of Capricorn. So we had a beautiful full moon over here late last night. It was quite, quite beautiful. For me, it was very soothing and very calming to feel inside of myself that everything that I've described on this video so far has played out, at least according to my perspective, and I'm just sharing my opinions. So I want to go to the stage a minute so I can show you some little bits on the chart, okay? Okay, so here we are right now at this very moment. It's the 22nd. We're actually just past the full moon. That was last night, but the energy is still there. So there's the moon in Capricorn, opposing all of this energy over here, Sun, Venus, and Mercury, all in Cancer. I think it's kind of interesting that when you look at this and you flip it this way, and you put Sagittarius on the horizon, this is like a massive transit that is, oh, that's the 17th. Okay, that was earlier. Okay, sorry. I'll come back to that. If you look at it this way, okay, I know it might be hard for you to see, but if you think of this as a fundamental axis here, the axis of identity, call this the first house. So Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and so on and so on. And over here we have Gemini and Cancer, and so on and so on. So right now we have Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Cancer. And it's all being opposed by the moon in Capricorn over here. In a day or so, the moon is going to be right over here, very close to Pluto. Well, it's going to cross over 27.5 degrees Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. Okay? Now, you see this little axis here? Sorry, I'm going to pull this one over here. You see this one here? Isn't that interesting? There's little Pluto right there. Okay, just a couple of degrees away. I know it might be a little hard to discern everything, but I'm just trying to visualize and mention that this is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that the United States of America, as we know it, is under extreme hyper stress. Sun, Venus, Mercury. Sun, Venus, Mercury in Cancer. Isn't that interesting? The United States identity, the sun, communications, nature of business. The beautiful thing is we have Jupiter in Cancer as well, which is a very fortunate aspect here. This is a beautiful energy over here. America is I see this as a beautiful, beautiful insignia of good fortune, love, harmony, opportunity, wisdom, commerce for the little people, for we the people. But, as we knew at the time of birth, 4th of July 1776, there is an enemy. And the enemy is deep, deep, deep within. It's born into the very soul of the United States. It's very, very important to acknowledge this. Know thy enemy. Know that the enemy is within. It's always here. It's always with us. Here in the United States, the enemy is within. I'm not saying Pluto's bad or Capricorn's bad. All I'm suggesting is that Pluto at 27.5 degrees in Capricorn at the birth, directly opposing Mercury, is a super hyper challenge. And it's a reminder that the founders of this amazing place, they knew all this. They realized how incredibly fortunate they were, and they wanted to enshrine this good fortune on paper. So they had the Declaration of Independence. Later, a few years later, they had the establishment of the signing of the Constitution. I just think it's very interesting. So the founders knew that by declaring this wonderful thing that we have here, and how we want freedom and independence, knowing at all times that we are at risk of being usurped by our own selves at the very depths of our souls as the enemy within. In other words, the founders already knew that eventually there would be people born inside of the United States, who would emerge as the ultimate enemy. Not Iran, not the British king, not the Spanish, not the French. No. It's right here in America. And it's being lit up right now. Within a couple of degrees. The enemy is within. And it's no longer a secret. It is full blown out in the open that the enemy is within right there. I'm just going to throw a couple little tidbits in terms of divinity, divine ordinance, divine, I don't know what you want to call it, coincidence. I don't know whether you love him or hate him or whether you care or anything about that or not. But do you see this axis here? This is the Sagittarius-Gemini axis. It's a very, very important axis for the United States. It's a Sagittarius sense of identity. In other words, we're so full of ourselves and convinced of our own awesomeness that we can just get bigger and better all the time. And we are adventurous. We like to lead. We like to have fun. We like enterprise. We like opportunity. Over here, Uranus in Gemini in the 7th house of America. Mars in Gemini in the 7th house of America. The house of open enemies. Again, this is a telltale sign how it's so easy for us to be our own worst enemies. But if we look at it positively, this is a pure opposition. There's nothing wrong with opposition itself because it's pure. There's nowhere to hide. So the way I see it is that it's a beautiful thing. We have a fierce desire for being special and unique in the way we communicate and are constantly trying to expand ourselves from the wisdom that we feel that we're born with, like outrageous privilege. And how do we turn that into day-to-day, experience? Okay, now, look at that. Uranus, Gemini, Mars in Gemini. Where was that? Okay, here's the Gemini. So we had all that Gemini vibe go over here. It's totally lit up. We've moved to Cancer now. So the Gemini Sagittarius was lit up over the last few days. Now that's very critical for the United States, sense of American identity. People all over the world are watching America to see what's happening here. They're watching it like a movie. They're actually thinking, my God, it literally is the implosion of the United States. But is it? So just one more layer of curiosity. United States is born with an Aquarius South Node, okay? And it's conjunct with the moon in the South Node. So it's like this intense drug-addicted compulsion to indulge in the most unhealthy aspects of the Aquarian vibe, which is like, oh, I'm here to help you. Hey, it's going to be great for everybody. It's just wonderful for everybody. Now, look at what's happening, okay? America's going out, like, trying to be, like, the generous, like, humanitarian servant to the rest of the world. Where is that leading us? You've obviously figured it out already. The financial ruin and decimation, and let alone the fakery about it all. Because the reality is we have a Leo North Node. If we were truly honoring ourselves, we would focus our energy on being the most awesome, glorious entity we could possibly be. And then we live by example. We don't pander to the folks that don't appear to have the good fortune that we have, out of this fake pity, fake compassion, fake empathy, which is actually used as a form of, I'd say, deep fake manipulation by the elites to take advantage. Anyway, now I'm going to add one more layer. Pay attention to the Gemini Sagittarius axis and the Leo Aquarius axis and the Cancer marker here. Okay, so it's slightly twisted. The plastic got twisted. Okay, I'm going to pull this out here. You probably can hardly see it because it's pretty faded right now. I don't know. Maybe I'll just pull it out like this. How about that? There's this fellow called Donald. He has a profound Aquarius Leo axis. He has a profound Capricorn Cancer axis. He has a profound Sagittarius Gemini axis. In fact, his North Node is in Gemini with Uranus and the Sun. Is that all a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that this guy was born with this particular astrology? I want to also point out, with his own particular Leo, he has Pluto in Leo, almost conjoined with Mars in Leo. So it's an extremely powerful energy in its own right. And it's conjoining the American North Node. So I think this is a little bit more than a coincidence that this fellow's around at this time in history. I should put more marker pens on this chart. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you folks. These are just some observations. I'm going to go into this another time. This is all about the signing of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights and all of that. That's another time. I'm just going to put today's chart here for now. So right now, like I said, we were talking about the Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces, massive T-square. Very, very ugly for anyone who is a criminal, a liar, a thief, a pervert, a what was it called? Minor attracted person. All those kinds of creepy things. They're being outed. There's a whole list of names and entities and organizations that I'll probably say that'll get my video banned, and then I'll have another strike, and then my channel will be dead pretty much forever. So I have to be careful. So I'm going to go over to a couple of little things here I'm going to mention. Let's see if I can do this without getting into too much trouble. How can I share these examples without getting into... I'll see if I can do it in code language. There's so many, so it's just like it's an unending list of revelations of the revealing for the healing. It's just staggering. I don't know where to begin, really. Hold on. I just shared one example earlier about the story I was watching in the Al Jazeera news from Qatar. But there's other stuff. I got a whole bunch of things sent over from Love Triber. Just one example. There's this guy, Rishi. And he's suggesting about restricting a driver's license and bank accounts for any young people in England who refuse to join the military. There you go. Talk about warmongering. Here's another one for Edmonton, Canada. Thank you, Love Triber, by the way. Edmonton, Canada. Some of you know that Precious Moments lives up there in Edmonton. It's about 2 million people. It's a big city. It has extremely fierce cold winters, wide open spaces. It's fairly close to the big oil world of the Alberta, I think it's Alberta oil sands. So it's a hugely wealthy area in terms of natural resources. Anyway, the city has just declared that they're going to divide the whole city into 15 districts that are going to be rolled out as 15-minute cities. They've been planning and planning and planning. Okay? And the lady on here is trying to say, hey, listen, everybody, don't worry about it. It's all going to be a beautiful thing. Everybody's going to get what they need, what they want, whenever they need it, without having to go more than 15 minutes anywhere. It's going to be fabulous. And she's trying to stop the reporters talking to her. Hey, lady, what about all that stuff to do with the World Economic Forum and the prison world designed by 15-minute cities, so that we're using CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, inside the 15-minute cities, so that if you, the inhabitant of the 15-minute city, decide to misbehave according to their protocols, then your bank account gets shut down, or you can't buy meat anymore, or you can't travel outside of the 15-minute Edmonton city for another year, and so on and so on and so on. She's trying to tell everybody, oh, don't worry about that stuff. That's just a conspiracy theory. Yeah. Here's another one that's it's very hard to put this stuff on the YouTube platform, but it came from the Telegram. It's just the one example. You know how I was shut down for so-called misinformation about, chemicals that we put inside us with needles and bugs that are spread all over the world by malicious actors, bug number 19 and so on. And there's a new bug related to birds, and they're using these storylines as an excuse to kill off billions of cattle in America, billions of chickens, not billions, excuse me, I'm lying, millions of cattle, cows, millions of chickens. So, who knows, maybe it'll go to pigs and seafood. But anyway, that's all part of the destruction. Anyway, this story is about these funeral directors mostly in the world, that English-speaking world. They were observing how thousands of vulnerable people were so-called MURDERED inside traditional homes of caring in order to start the number 19 storyline pandemic. In other words, to create an emergency. This doctor, the funeral director, was contacted and ordered by a government official to instruct them to let every natural death now has to be labeled as death by number 19. And then he noticed, wow, the rate is exploding on these number 19 people. And then on top of that, he noticed that once everybody starts getting those chemicals stabbed into them with a needle, the death rate expands even further. Interesting. It's all connected. So is somebody trying to take us out? I wonder who that could be. Here's another creepy story. Again, Love Triber, thank you. There is a Chinese citizen who is going to help run the San Francisco Elections Committee. Okay, she's just been appointed. She's not a citizen. She's a girl from Hong Kong. She's been appointed by the city of San Francisco. This is from the San Francisco Standard. It's just a mainstream newspaper. I don't know what to tell you. There are some people in Washington, if they're very conservative and common sense types, they are outraged. I think it's disgusting, personally. I could do a screen share of the next thing I want to tell you, but that could probably get me into trouble, so I'm going to just try and describe it very, very loosely. I'm looking at something called Visual Capitalist, and it's an incredible resource for visual, for people who like pictures about what's going on. You know, about interest rates, or the Federal Reserve, or the weather, or how people behave across the world. And there are all sorts of different charts and things. I've got one particular chart here about, it's called Visualizing America's Population by Race. And it's kind of a pie chart. And it's broken up into sections. 60% WHITE, 18.5% HISPANIC, 12.2 BLACK, 5.6 ASIAN, 2.8 mixed, 0.7 American Indian and Alaska Natives. So, as you can see, this is pretty new, but it used to be more like the first one I mentioned used to be about 70 or 80. And if you look at maps from years ago, it was close to 90 to 95. So anyway, the elites have deemed people like me, because I happen to be of that particular color, I'm enemy number one, especially if I live in the United States and I'm conservative by nature, and I like my Constitution, and I feel patriotic, and I would like to reconstitute the Constitution and enjoy the wonders of 4th of July 1776. I'm the enemy. So they're trying to destroy us, particularly people like myself. And there's this thing called, the replacement. And it's not a joke. I'd like to show you the chart, but I'm just not going to do it. The idea is to eliminate that 60% of the population here and put others in their place who do not have this complexion. Am I concerned? A little bit. Here's another one that's very creepy. Thanks again, Love Triber. It's about some old footage when Mr. OBAMA was giving a lecture years ago. And it amounts to his own declaration that he was not born inside the United States. And so why should he ever be considered to be, theoretically, like a hypothetical situation? How is it possible to be elected as a president? Well, theoretically, it's not possible. However, years later, we found out that it is possible. I can't prove any of this. I've been watching the video. I've been looking for hints of deep fake manipulation. I can't quite see it. Maybe it's deep fake, but it's very, very disturbing to me. So those are just little tidbits that I wanted to share with you. Okay. Hold on. Where did I put my notes? Oh yeah. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up now. I'm not going to do any readings because it's Saturday afternoon here in Las Vegas. It's the 22nd. Hopefully we don't get shut down and we can hang out on Sunday evening, which is tomorrow the 23rd, 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'll be able to do a little bit of astrology and do a couple, maybe 2 or 3 tarot readings, okay? In the meantime, I was not totally idle during my 10-day timeout. I started to play around with X and Rumble. And it was actually quite fun because on Rumble, I was doing something similar to what we can do here. I can't quite do it the way we do it here because of the technology. It means I would have to completely strip down all of my software and reconfigure it. And I'm very reluctant to do that at the moment because it's taken a long time for me to get my softwares to work the way I want them to. But it's possible. So I do a very sort of like a primitive live stream on Rumble. It's actually quite fun because I can rant to my heart's content. I can just say pretty much whatever I want. It's been very satisfying, fun. Another thing I noticed is on my X account, it's very, very fluid, almost like TikTok. The algorithms on X work in a similar way to TikTok, is what I've noticed. In other words, X feeds me information that resonates with my vibes. I put out stories, information, tweets, and things that come from within, and then things get reflected back, and I get some degree of interchange. It's very new because I don't really have an audience there, but there are people who watch. Same thing with Rumble. I don't really have much of an audience there because I don't know how to. I'd have to start from scratch, and I don't know how to do that anymore. I don't really have. Well, in theory, I have access to probably a few thousand email addresses from years of TarotLumination. I'm reluctant to use those because I don't know who's interested or not. And I don't like receiving emails that I don't want. So I don't like to send them out. But I have a list of about 20 emails of the folks that tend to hang around quite frequently. So I'll try to keep you posted. In the meantime, what I'm planning to do is a YouTube show tomorrow evening, okay? So I hope you're enjoying this full moon. It's setting us up for Cancer season. Oh, by the way, hold on. I don't know whether you noticed. Remember we were talking about all the Mars energy over here when Mars was in Aries for a few months, and how the whole subject of World War III was really going to amplify Mars in Aries, conjoining the North Node in Aries. transiting Chiron in Aries. We already knew it was going to be a massive explosion of expression regarding, I would say, anger in the form of violence, righteous, you might call it righteous violence, because a lot of people feel extremely violated. Hundreds of millions of people across the world have been feeling extremely violated, and they have nowhere to go except to resort to violence and retaliation. So we've seen this huge expansion of violence across the world. Some people are calling out World War III, and that expansion is still happening. Mars, so at that time, we had a lot of energy in Gemini, a lot of energy in Aries, and in Pluto and Aquarius. So it was a very, very zingy, zany, buzzy, frothy kind of energy, like a freshly poured soda at a fast food place before it settles down. Now that has changed because Mars has now moved into Taurus, so things are much more mellow and soothing, earthy. Mars in Taurus kind of isn't happy there. It's okay. Mars in Taurus can indicate, in simple terms, can indicate conflict wherever it goes. So you could think of conflict with the global financial system. Well, guess what we're seeing? That's a whole other video. The whole global financial system. I should really do another whole video on that. Jupiter's still there in Gemini, but it's on its own. But now the emphasis for the time being, the headlights, in other words, Sun, Mercury, and Venus, Moon and Mercury, Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus are all kind of over here. So it's softer, slower energy, Capricorn, Cancer, Taurus, as opposed to Aquarius, Gemini, Aries. Things are going to change. I just wanted to point that out. You feel it. I feel it in my body, physiologically. Also, one last thing I wanted to point out. Can you see this cross here? I had to add this because I couldn't think of a way to show it. Where, again, I'm not seeing it on major softwares, but there is a very deeply profound, massive T-square between the nodal axis and the Moon and the Sun, Mercury, and Venus right now. This is a massive grand cross. In other words, you've probably seen those. It's a big red square, like bang, 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 bang. If I wanted to, I guess I could cheat a little bit. Well, let me do it, because we're at the end of the video now. I just want to highlight something. All this axis here, they're all in very hard squares to each other. America is under a lot of pressure. People are under a lot of pressure to be themselves. There's a lot of extreme violence all over the world, and everybody's now, even mainstream, is talking about the inevitability of World War III. It's obvious. Aries, the sign of the warrior. Mars moved on in Taurus, but soon Mars is going to be in Gemini. It's really going to light up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and illustrate a grand cross. This is a cross, but it's sometimes also called a grand square. So I'll try and do it like this. Does that make sense? Well, it's a lot. I didn't draw it very well, but you get the idea. This is a grand square. This is the grand cross. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up, leave it like that. I'm going to check out now. Hope to see you all Sunday evening. We'll have another hangout. Okay, bye.